many creators I know that I'm friends with, sometimes the reaction is to also stick up for your story and fight. And I appreciate that about some creators. I'm more of the sort of like, I hear you, just wait it out, not argue online about that stuff. But
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. This is the second half of my conversation with Josh. In the first half, we talked a lot about how you can break superheroes by ignoring history and character traits. And in this video, we're going to talk about customer feedback, whether it's hate or harassment. We're also going to talk about the role and responsibilities creators have to the audience and our thoughts on that as well. I hope you enjoy the video. And if you haven't watched the first part, I highly recommend you go check that out first. Another thing that we kind of see a lot is writers inserting themselves into the character, and that's even worse, I think, than just getting their character wrong. Is when you decide that Bruce Wayne doesn't matter anymore because I'm just going to use that character and he's going to be me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I definitely agree with your statement on that. That's worse than just flat out getting the character wrong. Getting the character wrong can be rectified by just changing the author. Writing yourself onto the character is where things start to go really awry. That's where you really lose the fans, and that's when you start to do permanent damage to the character that you're working with. We've seen this with King and Bendis, and I don't want to sound like I'm just focusing on those two, but those are the two biggest and worst examples of this in modern comics right now.
Definitely the biggest offenders at DC. Because like an example of what I was talking about before, if you go and read Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, it is a terrible take on Spider-Man. It is a detraction from the character. It takes the character down a notch. But I know that Tom Taylor doesn't believe that he's a worthless idiot like the Peter Parker he's writing. He's just writing a terrible version of Peter Parker, which is easily rectified. But when you get to this Tom King Batman that we just ended, he's completely inserting himself into the character and doing long-term damage because, and here's the real problem, and I don't think people don't see it from my perspective, is now when we criticize Batman or the direction of Batman, we're no longer criticizing the direction of the character. We're criticizing King personally. We're saying he's not good enough or he wouldn't be a hero. So how is he ever going to change, or is he going to adapt and go with the reader's wants and needs? Because now they're personally attacking him, in his mind. And I think that it makes it that much worse because then the writer is unwilling or unable to alter the direction and maybe course correct.
Yeah, that's a good point. That when he's writing himself into the character, it's very difficult for him to be able to change his direction or course correct the problems that fans are having with the title because he's putting himself into it. He's not actually writing Bruce Wayne or Batman. He's writing Tom King in the Batsuit. That's what he's doing. It makes it more difficult for them to course correct. But that's why you never do that. That's why you're not supposed to do that. That's why that is like the number one rule of creating in comics. You never write yourself onto the character, because when you start doing that, it becomes almost impossible for you to course correct yourself if people aren't liking the stories. Let's face it, you're not going to make every single fan happy. There's no comic book story ever written that has made every single reader, every single fan happy. It's impossible. But you need to keep that majority, 70%, 80% of your fan base happy. And when you're writing yourself onto a character, that right there, very rarely does that ever succeed. Very rarely does it ever make the fans happy.
It's also interesting, with the new age, where everything's connected, it's never been easier, for a writer to get that feedback, instant feedback, for how are the readers and your customers feeling about the direction. You can get it literally within an hour of New Comic Book Day. There's going to be somebody going hashtag Superman, hashtag Batman, hashtag Iron Man. They're going to be throwing a picture up of either their favorite picture in the thing, saying, "This is amazing. I can't believe it. This is everything I ever wanted." Or they're going to be saying, "Can you all believe this?" And then all of a sudden you get a big trail and you're like, okay, this is trending. Look at all all these people are backing up. Maybe this was an issue. but it seems like some creators just aren't willing to take that feedback. They just want to say, well, they're obviously toxic. They're obviously man babies. They can't take a little bit of change to the character.
I feel like this is a bigger problem in society today, but I'm going to focus specifically just on comic books, is that creators and writers, they don't seem to want to accept any kind of criticism of their work. You do have writers who are more than willing to take that. Scott Snyder is an excellent example of this. There's so many people who will tell you stories of, them criticizing his work on Twitter or Facebook or something, and he will directly DM them and say, like, hey, what was your problem? I want to try to understand this. And this is a little of the opposite, but this just really stood out to me for the creators that they are. I met Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo at Baltimore Comic Con last year. And it was the first time I kind of got to talk to them personally. You have a few minutes to say a few words. And I talked to Greg Capullo and I just said, you guys got me into comics. And, you guys were the best, like back, with the New 52, the Court of Owls. He pulled me aside and he just said, well, what about our work got you into it? Why were we the best? What was it about our work that stood out to you so much that, brought you into this hobby, to the length that you're now paying money to get a picture with us? And I just thought that was astounding because he genuinely wanted to know what about his work stood out as great to me. And
feedback, baby.
It's feedback, and it's getting that personal relationship with your fans. And I'm to the point with those two where I will read anything that they put out. And I mean, it's almost like I'm kind of biased towards them now, but they have this really great relationship with their fans where they appreciate the feedback, whether it's good or bad, and they want to know why the fans felt that way so they can either work to fix it or they can do more of it. So if I give Greg Capullo feedback on, hey, this is what I really liked, he might turn around and say, well, then I'm going to do more of that. If I said, yeah, I didn't really like the way that you did this, he might turn around and say, yeah, well, next time we'll try not to do that, or we'll put a different spin on it. It's part of being a good creator is knowing how to work with your fans, give them what they want, and kind of, handle the feedback that they give you, good or bad. And we just talked about this a little bit with Sean Gordon Murphy. He's the same way. Like, fans criticize something he does. He's like, okay, thanks for your input. I'll take it into account. He and fans give him compliments. Okay, great. I know I can do more of that. It's part of being a good creator. You have to know, how to take that feedback, whether it's good or it's negative or positive. And you can't turn back and say, oh, well, if it's negative feedback, it's just because the fan's bad. That's not how this works, and it's not how the culture industry has worked for as long as it's existed. This is a new attitude by creators who do not want to accept that there's a chance that their work could be bad. A lot of creators today just think that because their work gets published, because it gets through all the channels it has to, it just means it's good. That's not the case at all. It's not like that. And you have, these writers who do not want to listen to fans. They just say, oh, you're toxic, you're a man baby, you're whatever, blah, blah, blah. Then they just dismiss these complaints. You're turning away your source of income. You're turning away the fans who have bought your products for decades, who has padded your paychecks with their own money, buying products from your company, buying your books, and who has invested years of their time and their lives into these characters and into these stories that you're writing. You're spitting in the face of those fans, and that's not good. You can't do that.
Yeah, one of the recent examples, of course, the biggest example I could think of in the history of entertainment would be The Last Jedi, where you had it's interesting because if you look at the Force Awakens, it's basically fanfic. It's J.J. Abrams inserting himself into the original Star Wars trilogy and meeting his heroes, and Han Solo wants to make him a part of the crew, and Princess Leia wants to give him a hug, and he's gonna go find Luke Skywalker, and he's riding shotgun with Chewie. It's just a fanfic. It's a bad movie because it's silly. It's not a good movie. But then when you get to The Last Jedi, it felt like the biggest middle finger to fandom in the history of the world, because he just went out of his way, Rian Johnson did, of destroying these things that people have loved for decades by that point. Let's make the most hopeful courageous man in the galaxy that basically risked his life to redeem his father when everyone in the universe thought he was the most evil thing in the history of the world, and he went in and redeemed him and basically freed the entire galaxy because his will and his compassion for others couldn't be broken. Let's make him a hermit on a planet that turned his back on people. Well, that doesn't fit in character whatsoever. And just the way that he treated the characters in the legacy of Star Wars just was the biggest middle finger in the history of entertainment that I've ever seen. I've never seen someone go out and create in someone else's playground, in George Lucas's playground, and just give everybody that ever invested emotionally, financially, with their time into that and just say, fuck you. I don't care what you think. I don't care what you liked. I hated all of it. And I'm going to fucking tell you what Star Wars should have been about, and just basically take a giant shit in everyone's Wheaties and then told them to eat it. And then were upset and shocked when the readers didn't take it that way and said, you know what? I'm not going to eat this. You're a terrible person. I don't like anything that you did. And you know what? I will lay it all off. And people were angry about it for months on end. And nobody at Lucasfilm, Rian Johnson, they couldn't accept an ounce of that feedback.
Nope, not a bit of it. And that is what really made all this come to a head with me. I'm not a huge Star Wars guy. If I'm a Star Wars guy, it's the original 3 movies and the Old Republic stuff. That's what I like. But I respect the Star Wars fan base, and it's amazing to see how, just off those first 3 movies, how those fans managed to keep that series, that property, the Star Wars property, alive. We would have never gotten the prequel movies if it wasn't for the fans keeping that product alive for those, 16 or whatever, 20 some years or whatever it was between the original 3 films and the prequel series. You had fans do that through books, toys, and conventions. They never stopped going. They never stopped buying things. They loved those characters. And it was only 3 movies that did that. And I don't care what anybody says about The Last Jedi. I don't care if there's people who hate it, people who love it. If there's people who die on the hill of it was the worst thing ever, there's people who die on the hill of it was really good. A film that divided the fan base so badly and drew such a clear line, that automatically means it was not a good film. Just for the fact that it divided the fan base like it did. Good things do not divide fan bases like The Last Jedi did. I haven't seen The Last Jedi, but I know enough about it to know that it was the ultimate middle finger to the fans of Star Wars. But you have petulant children like Rian Johnson running around on Twitter and social media just attacking fans because they didn't think his work was good. You can't do that. But here's the problem with that. This is probably the biggest point that I wanted to make in this entire discussion. As a writer or a content creator, whether you're doing movies, you're doing comic books, you're doing books, this even stems into academia with theory and articles and textbooks. As a writer or a creator, you have one job, just one job. You have to make sure that whatever your idea is, whatever you're trying to put out there, whatever you're trying to say, whatever your idea for a character or a series is, it is your one job as a writer or a content creator to make sure that you clearly and effectively communicate this idea to your audience. If your audience does not understand your movie, if they do not understand your character, if they do not understand your idea, and if they do not react the way you want them to that idea, it's not the audience's fault. It's your fault. You didn't do your job. You did not clearly or effectively communicate your idea or your character to your audience. If you have fans coming to you and saying, I don't get this. I didn't understand this. This isn't like what it should be. This isn't good. It's not the fans' fault for not liking it. It's your fault. You wrote the story and you failed to communicate your ideas and communicate what you wanted the character to be to the fans. If the fans can say, yeah, I understood everything about the book, I just didn't like it because I thought it was bad, that's a different story. That's on the fans. They've already established, hey, I understood it. It wasn't that, he failed to make me understand this or something like that.
I would say that I do understand that the Superman and Batman and the Last Jedi. My issue is that they are not keeping in with the tradition and the spirit of those stories, and they go outside. Now you could say I don't understand why this makes Batman a hero when he lets Joker murder a couple in a thing and gets shot, and Batman gets shot in the face. I don't understand how that makes him heroic. It doesn't make any sense to me. I understand what was happening, but it is on the creator when you come into a franchise as beloved and as sweeping as Star Wars, is that you have a fan base that you have to entertain and that need to like your story. So if when you're done, you haven't made the film or a product that meets the customer's needs, that they don't like it, if they firmly reject it, like what happened, with a good portion of Batman readers and a good portion of Superman readers and a large portion of Star Wars readers, you have absolutely failed in your job. You tried to do something different, but you didn't understand the character and you didn't understand your customers, and that is on you, not the customer.
Exactly. 100%. Yep, you didn't do your job. You didn't understand what you were doing. You didn't understand your fans. You didn't understand the character you were writing. You're absolutely correct. 100%.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it can be very frustrating, as a fan. And people are always goading. I would, I remember my first, I think maybe 3 weeks on Twitter, I just had put out a tweet. I'm definitely gonna skip out on Solo after the rise of or the Last Jedi. It's like I don't think I can watch another Star Wars fan. This dude just comes in like, well, you're not a Star Wars fan, are you? It's interesting. If I wasn't a true Star Wars fan, I would treat it like the Fast and the Furious.
Mm-hmm.
The beginning of the characters and everything, and where they are now, the movies are terrible. They've been terrible for I don't know, like 10 years now. I don't care. I'll just go because they're stupid fun. I don't care about any of those characters. It means nothing to me. They could ruin all of them. As long as there's some cars flying off of buildings or whatever, whatever. I'm not emotionally invested in any of that stuff. I'll go to those. It's $6 and 2 hours of my life to eat some popcorn. But I don't feel that way about Star Wars. If you don't treat the characters with genuine respect and you don't honor the legacy of them, I'm not going to give you my money anymore because I actually do care.
Yep.
That's the way I see it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So thank you very much, Josh. And, we went in a lot of different directions, but we want to talk about some of the passion of fandom and the way some of the fans have been mistreated and how it's on the responsibility of the creators to meet the fans' expectations. It's not on the responsibility of the fans to change our expectations based on the creators. I shouldn't have to expect less because Michael Bendis is on a title. I shouldn't have to expect less because Ryan Johnson is directing a film. They should have to meet my expectations because I'm the one paying the money, and I'm definitely the one putting out my passion, my time into it as well.
Totally agree.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.